What is going on, everybody? So here we are live, going to be doing a live video today. Very important subject for the channel just because a lot of people's on how I personally make money on the road. And I can say me getting a job in the service industry, by the way, service industry is bartender, server, barback, pretty much in my view, anything with restaurants and bars. And for me personally, um, I can attribute a lot of the travel I do today, and a lot of the reason why I've been able to travel is because of the service industry. The way that I got started into it was my first college job was working at TGI Fridays. It was kind of just on a whim. One of my friends was talking about being a server, and we just all went in together, and all three of us got hired. That was the first time that I actually learned anything with the service industry. That was just a server. I served food. Had to get my first liquor license. I wasn't even 21 yet. I think first semester of my sophomore year of college. And then I ended up meeting a friend from New Jersey, and I just showed up one summer and started looking around for jobs, and a family friend of theirs owned a bar. And at first I was a valet, so I would park all these really nice cars. It was right across the coast from Atlantic City, a place called Brigantine, New Jersey. And I was parking all these Porsches and Mercedes and everything, and then they needed a bar back. And that's the first time that I ever knew anything about bar backing. Picked it up really quickly, and that's going to be the job we're going to talk about most today, bar backing. That's typically the best way to get in as a guy. But we'll again go over that later. But I started bar backing, and then I was making anywhere from $150 to $220 per night cash. That doesn't include my my tips. I mean, my hourly. So I was making anywhere from $250 to $300 a night. Just this job that I just happened to stumble into. So we'll talk about bar backing in detail. That's the job that has really worked out really well for me. And from there, it just was a continuous thing. Once you have that experience as a bar back, you know how things work behind the bar. You know how to do the customer service. You know what needs to be clean. You know what needs to go where. What alcohol goes with this alcohol, and why this certain thing needs ice. And then from there, you start learning more of the customer service in terms of food. And then once you learn the food, once you learn how to serve the food and talk to the customers, then that's when you move up to bartender. So there is a hierarchy within this whole thing, and we'll get to that later as well. And so from there, it was just a progression. So now I'm at the point where I have enough years experience where I can pretty much go anywhere in the world where I'm an English speaker and have a good shot at getting a job. I just filled out an application last night for G&I's trip back up to Alaska. Be more on that later. But I'm going to go ahead and just check and see if I do have any questions on here, and get to any questions that come up. I think Wanderlust Estate might be on a little bit later, possibly. We'll see how it goes, because he's actually thinking about getting a job with something with the service industry. So with that said, you might be seeing him his whole process of even getting like an application to the to a bar to try and get on there and learn the process of getting a job on the road. So I guess with I'll check the chat. There's a group chat thing here on Google Plus. You can write on there if you want, and then I'll try and get to questions. But so actually, just let me try this real quick. So I'll just go ahead and get to it. If you have any questions, just go ahead and send it to my Facebook. That's Chris Travels. This chat thing, as you saw the last video, it's getting a little dicey in terms of getting things figured out for sure, where the chat box is going and people can contact me and everything. So it's just a little frustrating on your end. I know it is, but for us as well. Oh, there we go. Um, Jeanette says, thanks for putting the VW. No pro go. Okay, I'm getting your comments down there, guys. Good. We're good to go. So if you do have any questions along the way, just let me go, or just let me know. So let's get to the basics of this. So as I said in the beginning, the service industry is how I've got a lot of jobs, how I've made a lot of money on the road. You all know in Alaska I was making really good money up there, and that's how I have been able to pay for all the traveling I did in Alaska there and back. Basically, what I was doing was just using my credit card to live on, and then once I got to Alaska, I'd work the service industry and go that way. And what I'll go ahead and start with explaining is why the service industry is so good, and it's really helpful for those who are interested in traveling. As I mentioned before, you can pretty much work anywhere. Right now, G and I are down in Florida, and spring break's a big thing. Like, as I mentioned before, 3 years ago, I just happened to stop in a place and put in a couple applications, and with the experience I had, they hired me pretty much on the spot. And I had a place to park my van. I had a shower right down on the beach, and I was able within a month time to make like $6,500, and that was just as a barback. That wasn't even a bartender. And it's just a great mobile job to have. Now there are some downsides. The downsides really come with age and the hours worked. For right now, I mean, I'm 29 right now, so it doesn't really bother me that much. But some of the hours are pretty bad, and you're working 12, 13-hour days, and then at the end of the day, you have to go through and completely clean a bar that's just been wrecked, and it's the last thing you want to do. And with certain jobs, you have to be back up at like 10 in the morning the next day. So the bars might close down at 2 in the morning, and then you might get you know 7 hours of sleep, because even though those bars are closed down, like for example in Arizona, the bar would close down at 2 in the morning, we would be cleaning for another 2 hours. So we get off work around 4 in the morning, and if you have to be back at work at 10 in the morning, you have to go home, shower, and your feet are just completely numb from working. So it's kind of hard on the body, but at the same time, it's a great way to make quick cash, and there's a lot of seasonal work with this. As I mentioned before, right now we're down in Florida spring break. I was at a bar that wasn't even, and nothing compared to the big clubs. Like you can work at some of these clubs for a month and make like $6,000-7,000, and then you're back on the road. And that's kind of looking into here in Florida, but we'll get to that later. So the main job I'm going to talk about today is bar backing, and that's been the cornerstone of my traveling experience, because the way the hierarchy works in the bar, typically it's a set hierarchy where you have the bussers and hosts. So the bussers are usually the people going around with the trays. They're cleaning up all the dishes off the tables. Then those are typically the young girls standing at the door trying to get people to come in. That's a pretty typical thing to see at clubs and restaurants, especially the clubs slash restaurant that kind of like really good food during the day. Then at night it kind of becomes more of a lounge nightclub, and they have music and dancing and everything. So they always have like the young hostess and the bussers doing that. Then a step up from there is the servers. So the servers are the food servers. My first industry job, as I said before, was at TGI Fridays. They typically just do the food, running around. You might have, and they serve food, talk to people, get them their drinks, and then up above the servers, you have the bar back. That's where I typically came in, and that's typically how I got my foot in the door with a lot of places. Barbacks are essentially the bartender's whipping boy. That's essentially all they are. If the bartender wants extra ice, you go get ice. If the bartender's low on gin, you go get more gin. Now, the part with the barback that really you have to understand is a bartender should never know that he has a barback and he or she has a barback. What I mean by that is, as you're working throughout the night, say if their gin's getting low, before that bottle's even empty, you have one corked, which is the pour spout. You have that corked already, and once they're getting ready to be out, you hand it to them, and they have their bottle to go again. And you know, it's a smooth transaction. That's typically the best way to do it. You don't let the ice run out. Like, you never want your bartender to tell you that anything's out, or you need to do, or that they need to tell you to do anything. Like, you should just be automatic, getting stuff done. And then, of course, at the top of the rungs of employees, below the managers, is the bartenders. Those are it's funny because I always see the service industry as kind of like a high school. Like, you have your different groups, and the bartenders are the popular athletes of the place. Like, bartenders typically don't get in that much trouble. It takes time to get up to a bartender. It's rare to walk into a place and just get a bartending job, because typically people that have been there for 5-6 months are the ones that typically get the bartender. Now, that isn't always the case. There's a term that some people call fake it till you make it. And, you know, you apply and you put on your resume that you have worked at such and such, and you can go ahead and do it. I don't think that's a very good idea at the places that I work, the high volume. It's like trying to tell somebody that they're a pro level hockey player and they've never been on ice skates before, you know, because it's literally just going nonstop. Like, you're pumping out drinks at an unbelievable rate, you know, like, you're just continuously going. You got to know what you're doing. You got to know the drinks. Like, for example, if somebody comes up to you and says, I want 4 Washington apples, 2 buttery nipples, 2 Bud Lights, and a mimosa. Like, you have to know what to make first. You have to know that all of those shots that I named are whiskey based. So you have your shaker, you know that you're going to need this much whiskey. You got to know that they're chilled shots. You got to know which cordial to use with that. Then with the Bud Lights, you got to know that they're going to be in this location. Should I get my whiskey first? Should I get the Bud Lights? And then at the whole time, people are yelling at you for other drinks. You know, like, it's not something that, unless it's like a smaller bar where you can kind of learn as you go. The bars that I typically work at, you would not be able to do that. You can't just show up and do it. But with bar backing, which is what I'm hoping to do with a series that I'm working on, I have some old footage from the bar back in Arizona. I actually want to explain bar backing as much as I can and show you sample videos on how to bar back. My personal opinion is anybody out there that can lift a little bit and work long hours can be a bar back, and you can make a whole bunch of money. And what I hope to do is actually break it down step by step, what to do as a bar back, how to do it, and what they're looking for. Because you can put whatever, like, I've never had a bar, not once, and I've had 10-ish bar jobs. I've never had any of them actually call back to any place I worked before. All they're interested in is the work you do now. And I really think anybody out there can do the bar backing job, especially at seasonal events like spring training in Arizona, spring break down in Texas, Florida, Alabama. Like, they're looking to hire a bunch of people, and for a month at a time. Those out there that are interested in the mobile living and actually working and making an income while you're on the road, like a good income, making a whole bunch of money, a whole bunch of cash, this is the way to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and check the comments. That's basically just the hierarchy of the bar system. That's how things work. And what I mean by hierarchy is it's like the amount people can get away with too. Like, the amount people can just like tell people they're working for them, and the amount that, like, for example, a server isn't going to get their drinks. Like, a server can't go behind the bar and make their drinks. Like, a bartender, typically legally in every state, the bartender has to pour the drinks. The server then gets it at the service station, then brings it to the table. So if a server is being rude to a bartender, guess who's not getting their drinks? You know, so that's the hierarchy that I was speaking of. And like, the security guys are typically like, if an argument happens between a security guy and a server, typically the manager's going to take the server's side on things. That's just what I've seen. So just checking the comments. What's going on, everybody? So as I said, if you do happen to have any questions throughout this about the service industry, just let me know. And hopefully Wanderlust Estate will be able to join, because he is interested in joining the service industry. And I was going to share some information with you guys and him. And might be a different day type thing. Maybe we can get some questions generated from this video in general, and then people can, you know, we can do another one of these later. But since no questions, I'm going to go ahead and which aspect should I speak about in terms of the service industry right now? I guess the thing I'll talk about now is, I guess it'd be just how I typically search for industry jobs. Uh, Basically, the thing I always do, and the thing that I suggest anybody out there looking for an industry job, is go to the place whenever it's not extremely busy. Like, don't go at midnight on a Saturday night, but maybe like a Thursday night, maybe around 9, 10 o'clock. What I typically do would go there and then talk to the employees, see what they think, see what they actually think of the establishment, because typically they're going to be very, very honest with you. The reason why I got the job in Arizona actually is we went out the night before. Again, it was like a Thursday night. Wasn't slammed, but it was busy. And I talked to one of the girls working there, and I asked her what she thought about working there and if she had any other suggestions. And she said it was a great place, and if I was interested in talking to anybody, talk to Rick Rush. Ask for him the next morning. So what I did was I went home. Well, obviously later in the night, went home, and the next day got on, a nice shirt, a vest, a tie, nice pants, brought in my resume, and I walked in, and then I just said, so that they had the host there sitting there, and I said I was just waiting to meet somebody, because I didn't want to say I was waiting for the manager, because typically what happens is the hostess will just take your resume, and then you don't actually get a face-to-face with the manager, and then all it is just a piece of paper they see. So what I did was I actually waited until I saw a guy that looked like the manager. The guy, kind of the servers were coming up to, the bartenders coming up to talking. I sat there for maybe 5 minutes watching this guy. And then finally, when the hostess went to see somebody, I just walked straight up to the manager. I was like, "Hey, I'm looking for Rick Rush." And I had a good idea that was him, and it was him. So I asked him, he's like, it's funny. I asked him because I was like, I was wondering if Rick's available. He's like, he is. This is him. What's going on? I was like, well, here's my resume. I've bartended here. I've bar backed here. I'm also willing. Hey, James, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, what's up, bro? How are you doing, man?
Good, good. Just let me finish my story, and we'll get to the introduction. Sound good?
No worries, man.
So after that, I said I've bartended. I've done security. I bar backed. Just moved into town, looking to make some money before heading up to. I didn't tell him I was heading up to Alaska. I said I was looking to make some money while I'm in town before I start traveling again. And then we started talking about traveling, how I studied abroad. And he's like, "Well, we don't have any spots open for bar back, but we do have a spot open for security." He's like, "When can you start?" I was like, "I can be in tonight." And I was hired. And he gave me my work shirt then, and then I started working security. I was making $10 an hour, but I put my time in as a security guy for about a month and a half, and then a barback got sick during St. Patrick's Day, and then I barbacked St. Patrick's Day, killed it, and walked home with over $300 cash that night after I barbacked. But here's James, Wanderlust Estate. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, guys. So this kind of all got sparked up because I was asking Chris how he got into the industry. So I think he had some ideas on it anyways, but thought it'd be a good video for me to get a chance to pick his brain a little bit.
Absolutely. So far, without any knowledge of the industry, I mean, we talked a little bit on the phone last night. Do you have any specific questions thus far about the industry or how things work?
Well, I was wondering, what's the real hierarchy of getting into being a bartender? Because it seems like that a bartender seems to be able to have the most earning potential, and I've never worked in the field, and it seems like a field where I can go pretty much anywhere and find something.
Absolutely. Well, I went over the hierarchy a little bit, but I'll elaborate more on the hierarchy, like different aspects of it. Um, for you as a guy getting into the industry, and this is my personal experience. This is what I've seen throughout about 10 years of service industry experience. Us as guys, typically we have to start at the bottom rung. As I said, I started out security, then went to bar back, and then to bartender in Arizona. Whereas typically, like again, this is what I see: the young, attractive females, they go from not even on the scale. They're not even hired to bartender with like no experience. You know what I mean? Like it's more along the lines like they're friends of the actual owner, or a manager, a high up manager sees an attractive girl, because it can be done. I'm not saying because she's an attractive girl she can't do it. What I'm saying is they're more willing to put that money and energy into training that younger attractive girl, because believe it or not, the reason why they don't want people behind the bar with less experience is because they lose money. Like if you're able to pump out 10 drinks per minute versus 5 drinks per minute, drinks at clubs cost what, $6, $7, sometimes 10 for the premium stuff. And if you calculate that minute after minute after minute, they're losing on a whole bunch of money. Whereas they can train somebody, and they start slow and then work their way up. So typically, like the reason why the bar back is a good spot to go from bar back to bartenders, because you're behind the bar. You know what alcohol goes where. You know how to make the shots. Like there's positions also called a pouring bar back, which is typically like if I do get hired here in Florida, being that I'm a guy, odds are I'll be a pouring bar back, where if I get all the ice caught up, if I get all the liquor caught up, like everybody's stocked, and then a bartender has a order of 4 buttery nipples, then they say to me, "Hey, can you make these four drinks for me?" Because being a bar back, you learn that way, because you know what beers are what, what an amber is, what a IPA is. You learn the different classes of gin, like the well gin to the Bombay to the Hendrix. You learn that stuff, and when people order a certain type of drink, they say they want a premium Bay Breeze. That's a premium liquor with a Bay Breeze. I think a Bay Breeze is just a fancy way of saying a vodka and cranberry. So you know that from your experience that that's probably a Grey Goose or a Tito's with the cranberry. So that's a premium uh, vodka cranberry, and then you know how to bring it up on the actual computer as well. So that's why the hierarchy goes from bar back to bartender. And when we spoke on the phone yesterday, you were mentioning that you had a cousin that just kind of fake it till you make it. He got a bartending job, and I was
Yeah.
mentioning earlier, like at a slower rate pace. Like if you're at a bar where maybe you might make 1 drink per minute average, that's totally doable. You're going to learn a lot. It's going to be a very steep learning curve, but you're going to be good to go. But bars where I work at, my experience with bars, typically it's not like that at all, because the places I work, it's all about speed and efficiency. It's about getting those 8 drinks per minute, 10 drinks per minute. And the analogy I used earlier was like trying to get somebody saying they're a professional hockey player that's never been on ice before, and you sit them out there and watch them fall on their face. So
Yeah.
it really depends on what place you're applying for and what place you're looking at, because those bigger clubs, man, it's all about getting those drinks out as quickly as possible.
So basically, then, if you were to, the fake it till you make it sort of thing, you'd need to make that sure that that was a slower bar, so you had the chance to pick up the skills rather than trying to go and pull something like that at a big club, right?
Exactly. I mean, me as a person in the first place, I'm a very cautious person. I'm more of a person that would rather take my time and learn than to be thrown in a situation where I'm not comfortable or I'm not really prepared for. So it could just be a personality trait of mine. Like I would much rather go to a place, put the time in, and learn. But I mean, now I know how to bartend. I know the drinks. I know how to do speed. I know how to do things the most efficient way possible, and what different bars are looking for. So, but it's really up to the person in the situation. Just like
What's the
everything.
what's the likelihood that you could get a bar back job out the get go, or is it better to just try to do security and make it known you'd like to go that route?
Well, what we were talking about, I don't think I actually got to it like completely, but what I want to do with some of the old footage I have is actually make an entire how-to video how to bar back, because I think if you're physically able and you're clever enough, like you can put whatever experience level, you can make up bars, you can do whatever, and show up to the job and do the job well. Again, like I'd have to go through that old footage and edit it and actually explain what's going on and how you can do it. But I think anybody can do it, man, because it's really just all about how hard you want to work and just knowing and understanding where things are at and just watching people. Not necessarily the customers, but watching your bartenders. Like, know which bartender pours a little bit heavy on the gin on certain drinks. So you got to watch their gin. Know which bartenders use more ice compared to other bartenders, because you have to watch their well more than other bartenders. You know, so it's really just depends on how well you're able to adapt to new situations. But if you do want to take your time and you want to start out of a place and work your way up, learn the industry, starting out as a security guard is a way to go as well. It just really depends on what you're comfortable with and what you're willing to try.
So if you're stout, I mean, what are they looking for with a security guard? Like, do they care, or what are they after if you're going in green?
It really, I mean, the thing people don't like, they might assume that it's one way, and then it's really not. Is places don't want security guys that are going to go in swinging. They want smart, level-headed people, because that's a big lawsuit waiting to happen if you have somebody that's just guns blazing. Like when I was a security guard, they'd have a meeting before the shift and after shift, and if anybody was out of line, like they would correct them at the end, and beforehand, every time they would say, keep a level head, stay calm, and ask, like, before you get into anything, make sure you have backup, like they're with you. You know what I mean? Like, because they always wanted to make sure things were as safe as possible. Granted, it was the ASU crowd. We had a bunch of students. We necessarily didn't have anybody that was like, super big and we had to worry about. But like, even like the biggest security guy would always be, he'd always typically ask, like, call radio, get somebody else over there with him if they had to take somebody out, just to make sure. They'd go over no chokeholds, never use chokeholds. If you have to get somebody out, make sure somebody's clearing in front. Don't be bumping into people. So it was definitely more of a, if you're more intelligent and articulate, they're going to be looking more for that rather than just some big burly guy. You know what I mean?
Right. That makes sense.
Because a lot of it was just talking people out of dumb situations.
Yeah, like, calm down, man. Or you really want to start something over that stupid thing? Like,
Exactly. I mean, that happened at least once a night. And like I said, I was security for a month and a half before I got bumped up. So a lot of dumb stuff.
When you were doing it, were you trying to basically find a way to let them stay, or were you more trying to encourage them to leave on their own?
Depends on the person, man. Okay. Yeah, it just really depends, because I mean, some people you can just see in their eyes, they're just looking to be dumb. Like you can get that vibe from them. Where some people, like they might have had a little bit too much to drink, they might have just been in a bad situation, or they might have bumped into somebody, and then a big thing got riled up. Like, I feel like you could normally tell when people were just being, I guess the best way to put it is just mean, just like trying to be a jerk, compared to somebody that was just, wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, they talk to you differently, basically, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. But yeah, man, it really depends on the place and what their need is as well. Because I mean, some of these big clubs, they have barbacks that haven't left in 5-6 years, because it is a lot of money, man. And like when it comes down to it, for people that don't like dealing with people that much, like bartenders have to deal with a bunch of drunk, stupid people. As a barback, you do as well, but you don't have to actually talk to them. You know what I mean? Like there's no face-to-face with the customers, because all you're doing is stocking the bar. You're making sure the bar's stacked and you're cleaning stuff. Whereas as a bartender, like that's $55. Somebody replies back, 55? There's no way that it costs 55. I'm like, you have to explain what each drink is. Like it's that happens multiple times every night. Granted, bartenders do get paid more, but as a barback in Arizona, we would bar back and get maybe, say an average night we get $200, bartenders get maybe 280. You know, so it really just depends on, you know, which place you're at, the tip cut. It's different. They do it different every place. But sometimes bar backing, man, for certain people, that's a better way to go. They prefer to do that over bartending.
What are the minimum things that you would want to know what you're doing is if you were trying to chase a bar backing job?
In terms of, you mean like the place, like what you know about the place, or your
Like
skill
what
set?
kind of both? Like what do you need to know about that particular place that you're trying to get hired on, and then also what do you need to know in general so that you can make it through that first night of trying to bar back green?
Well, the story that I was talking about before you got on was basically how I got my job in Arizona. Like, typically what I do, like, for example, if you're in Houston and you're looking at different clubs, first thing I do is, before I even go out to the place, I go to Google, and then I look up the rating system for that particular place. And I don't go to any place that's below a 4-star, because what when you work at a place like this, you're investing your time and energy into something. Like, it's honestly no different from what I see as the stock market, because the amount of people that come into that place is the amount of money you're going to make. All right, so you don't want to invest in a bad product to begin with. You want to do your research, figure out how good the place is, and then once you see something around 4 stars, they say it's great food, great atmosphere, then go into the place. I'd say on a halfway busy night, like a Thursday night, maybe around 9, 10 p.m., kind of get a feel for the crowd, get a feel for the atmosphere, the ambiance, and see if you like it, see if it's your type of place. Then if I get past that part, then I talk to an employee. When I was out at Canteen, when I asked about the manager, I spoke to one of the beer tub girls. Somebody, it wasn't one of the bartenders that was super busy making drinks. It was one of the girls standing there looking cute, selling beers. You know, so I went up to her. She gets talked to all the time. You know, I was like, hey, so I'm thinking about getting a job here. What would you suggest working here? Who would I talk to? When should I come in? She said, come in Monday around mid-afternoon. Rich is going to be here. Rich is the manager. And then after that, I, like the story again, I'll tell it briefly to you. But instead of giving my application to the hostess, I just kind of hung out. I said I was waiting on somebody, and then I scoped out the place, because in Canteen from the front host stand you could see the whole restaurant. And then I kind of scoped out who the manager was, and then just went up and talked to him individually, gave him my resume, and that's how I got hired. So that is typically like the beginning stages of me finding a place to work. And the place that I'm working at, or the place I'm looking at, the place I'm trying to get hired on here in Florida, following a very similar situation to possibly get hired.
Okay. And then once you've selected that place, what do you try to learn about the establishment itself to help you do a better job as a barback?
Well, it's just like kind of how you said your cousin or whatever did the fake it till you make it. So I'm not sure, but my guess is that was a slower place to work. Whereas the place I was working at in Arizona, it was more of a slinging drinks place. It was more of a, let's try and get those drinks up to 15 drinks per minute, guys. You know what I mean? Like, it's a whole different atmosphere. And bar backing at the first example I had is going to be really slow. You're probably not going to make that much money. They probably don't even have barbacks, because it's typically slow enough to where the bartender can actually restock everything, and if they run out of a certain type of beer, they can run to the cooler and get it, and there's not going to be a line of people waiting to get a drink. Whereas in the Arizona bars, like the place that I was working, the super busy all the time place, like if ice runs out for 10 minutes, the club just lost $150 because that bartender can't make any mixed drinks. You know what I mean? So it's a different type of situation. It's a different type of work. But again, that's how you make the $250 cash a night.
Okay. So, all right. And like, if when you're going into it, I know you said like you kind of fill out the bartenders, but like say you're faking it until you make it, and you're in a place and it's a pretty busy place, right? what are you looking at to help make sure, initially, to make sure that you do a good job that first night? Because obviously, with anything, there's going to be a way to go about things efficiently, even if you don't know the bartenders yet, like any other kind of job. Or there's the other way where you're just running around with your chicken, like a chicken with your head cut off. What are the things that you look at if wanting to kind of learn as quick as you can, or maybe peek over first before you even start?
Um, I guess the best advice I can give with that is maybe one night go out and just kind of scope out the bar backs, how they're doing it,
Okay.
because each bar I've worked at has been radically different.
Okay.
Like definitely get that clarified. Like each bar has its own different thing the bartenders want. The bartenders don't want you to do this some places, but if you do it in another bar, like they think that you're the 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 best thing ever. You know what I mean? Like a perfect example, I'll go ahead and use Florida. Whenever I was bar backing here in Florida, they had two bars. They had the small little satellite bar, which I was at, and they had the big bar, and then it just rotated. Like you just kind of went from bar to bar. And one bar, depending on like if I had two bartenders, because the bartenders rotated as well. If I had two certain bartenders in that satellite bar, I wasn't allowed to, or they didn't want me to go in and actually refill their bottles of liquor. So say they were really low on triple sec. I would have a triple sec ready. I'd go up behind them, maneuver around, put that triple sec in their thing, and then throw away the other bottle. But they didn't want me in there because they were moving around so much. They just liked their free space, and I'd put the bottle that they needed on the side, and they would see it once they went out. I always had their bottle ready. Whereas when I did that with another set of bartenders, they're just like, "What are you doing? Put this in here." So it
Okay.
differs from bartender to bartender, bar to bar. But I would just say I'd say the best advice with that is just actually go scope out the place. I mean, it's really easy to tell who the barback is. It's the only person behind the bar, typically not pouring drinks, and you can kind of just watch them, see how they do it, how they carry their ice in, because it's different because ice machines are in different places. Like I've worked at places where I've had like the little clear jugs, and I've worked at places that have a big 55-gallon trash can I've hosed up my shoulder and then walk through the middle of the dance floor. Like it just really, really depends. But I would say it just, again, like whenever I do the video, whenever I get back to Indiana and get the video, I can actually show some of the things that I do that's been congruent through all bar jobs. Like, for example, as you're walking through, I mean, this is something that you don't think of, and if you do happen to go to a bar and scout this out and see what the bartender's doing, they do this all the time. As you walk by, tap them on the shoulder and stay behind, because the bar is like this wide, and you're trying to get three people in between this little space. So as I go through, I just tap them on the back, like behind, 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 and it's become second nature. And
Okay.
that's something that's universal through every bar. And keeping the bar clean, keeping a rag on your side, keeping the bar clean, removing all the straws, that's universal. But like later on, whenever I get that video from back in the day when I was bar backing, we can show you that. But there are some things that are congruent through all bars, but typically it's situational, depending on the bartenders in the bar.
So, do you think it would be a help to go into a bar and for a couple of days maybe go and chat if it's slower with some of the bartenders and see if you can get help that way?
Well, I
Get in
mean,
that way? Just a second, Chris. I think Mike might be here.
oh, cool, awesome. I'll go ahead and answer that question for him. Some people might automatically assume that's the way to go because you're talking to a bartender, but don't assume because you're asking they're going to try and help you out, because typically if you're there during the day, it's going to be slower, and that bartender's there trying to get on the night shifts. So if they get more bartenders on, that's less of a chance for them to actually move up. So that's something a lot of people don't realize with the service industry. Typically, it's pretty cutthroat in terms of getting jobs and offering jobs, because you got to remember those bartenders have friends as well. And if it's that good of a job, and they're going to try and get their friends on. So there's always two sides to it, and you got to be conscious of that. But definitely ask for lower position jobs. They're going to be more truthful with the lower position jobs. Was that Mike?
No, it was somebody else about fixing something. Darn it, man! I was hoping it was Mike. It's about the time. He said he'd be here close to 2.
That's funny. I just got a question from Living My
I was like, darn.
Life. Texting him too. He'll be here in a bit. But Living My Life said, "Does your landscape photography sell online? If so, where do you check my blog?" But yeah,
Hey Chris, you might want to turn the bandwidth down.
you guys have any questions, is set out, and is the bandwidth messing up?
Yeah, you might want to turn down the bandwidth on your audio just a little bit because you're doing the robot thing.
There we go. How's that?
Sounds tons better, man.
Good. Any other questions about industry stuff there, man?
No, actually, I think you kind of explained it. Like the best thing I can do is probably just show up, kind of stake it out, like you said, and do that research as far as make sure it's not places that everybody's voting saying suck, you know. And who knows why it might suck? It might suck because of the people that show up. It might suck because of the attitude at the bar, right? I mean,
absolutely. I mean, when it comes down to those Google reviews, man, like there's no holds back with those. I mean, granted, most reviews that get reviewed typically are negative. Like in my experience with that, like typically they're when people are going to write whenever they're upset. But you know, typically when it's really that good of a place, when it has 4 stars, 4.5 stars, that's definitely a place you want to work, because as I said, you're more investing in yourself whenever you work at a place like that, because there is a lot of time and energy that goes into it. As I said, like it's not necessarily an easy job to do, and you're definitely feeling it after you get off a night of work. And sometimes as a bar back, they ask you to do some crazy shifts. Like there was a time where they asked me to do, and I did it. It was an open to close, which was a 10 a.m. to about 4 in the morning, and then I reopened the bar the next day, and the bar opened at 10. You know,
yeah.
So, and it's straight zombie and at the bar. You know, like you're pouring drinks, and you know my money till is always off because I can't even count. I'm so freaking tired after those shifts. So it is a hard job, but it is a great job to travel with, and you can make some serious cash in a short amount of time.
Seems like it might be a good way to get into the cruise line industry too, right? Being able to do those kind of positions and be able to go see a little bit of the world while you're doing it, or no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the cruise lines, though, I hear that's kind of a little bit of a double-edged sword there. Like I've heard that they're actually not that great. I've heard that people typically they'll do it for just a little bit, and then they're done. Like I don't know. I've only heard negative things about the cruise lines,
Okay.
but my off cruise up in Alaska, you know, that was a double-edged sword as well. But I did make a great amount of money, and I met some really cool people. But I mean, it's nothing that I necessarily want to do again either.
Yeah, I can see that. All right. Well, maybe I'll check back with you. I'll go and start doing some staking stuff out and see about taking some of those tips and trying to implement them, because I've usually just worked in the oil industry, and oil just dropped below $50 a barrel, which everybody's put on a hiring freeze. A lot of companies are scared because reserves are higher than they ever been. Gas is still going to be on its way down. That's good for everybody out there that doesn't work in oil.
Absolutely. So, no pro go pronto asked, do you really need a resume to barback, or are you just being prepared? And yes, just being prepared. Anything you can do to separate yourself from the rest of the people coming in, it just kind of shows that you are willing to put a little bit of extra work in. And especially when you're doing jobs that are kind of seasonal, you know, you might get some really different type of people in. And I don't know, it's really hard to explain. Like the seasonal stuff, like I've met some pretty sketchy people that do the seasonal work. So, and I think bars know that as well, because what I mean by that is when you're doing seasonal, you're just in for a certain amount of time, then you're gone. Nobody cares about the longevity of your time there. You can do whatever you want. They fire you, whatever. You're just there working, doing a seasonal job. So it's a little bit different. Where like some of the bars I've worked at, some of the bartenders had been there for 3 or 4 years because those bartenders were making $350 a night. So whenever you do kind of the short-term stuff, it's better to be prepared. And we have Janice Adams, Too Long Hours, Not Enough Money Cruise Lines. That's what I heard. And living my life, I said that I do sell some of my photos online. You can check it out at socialmedianomads.com. You can also show or add some videos if you want that to be online. It's basically a social media sharing site for van dwellers, if anybody there is interested. Do you have any other questions there, James?
Man, I think that's about it. I just wanted to get a idea of how to approach things, and you know, if I'm gonna like kind of fake it a little bit, like where I should kind of toe the line so that I keep an opportunity, you know.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, man, keep us in the loop and let us know. I'm really interested to see how it goes for you, being that like I've never actually seen how my advice is being put to use. Like typically, and people always ask me about industry jobs. 'Cause I'm always working them online, and obviously people are interested in doing the mobile lifestyle. But I've never actually seen anybody or had any feedback from my
Well, I'll be the
suggestions.
first because I'm gonna go and start. I know a couple of places that I think I'm gonna go check out and see how they are. I do know they're really really busy and real popular. So um, most of the places that are like that here are like country western type places that mix up some hip hop into them, like Big Texas and tumbleweeds and stuff like that. Not that maybe anybody else knows what those are, but they're giant bars here.
Well, hey man, those places typically make a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, we're talking where they sometimes have $10,000 hours in liquor sales.
Yep, that's how you make a lot of money right there.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Anybody else have questions for you, or are we gonna?
Let me check if anybody does have any questions. Ask them real quick. We're about to end this. This is just the first little thing we're doing on the service industry. You can go ahead and leave a comment if you are watching this non-live, or if you do have any other questions. You can go ahead and leave a comment on this video. But I think that's about it. That's just a brief little introduction to the service industry and how I've personally made it work for me, and how I've made money doing it, and how I've made really good money doing it actually, and how I hope to continue doing it in the future. And hopefully James here has some luck. It'd be great to see all this information go to work for you. There, big guy.
Yeah, it would be cool. I'll give you some feedback on it in a few days after I get out there and start beating the pavement a little bit. Um, do you suggest that I do have some kind of fake stuff, I guess, on a resume, or would you just try to use whatever I've already done and try to show how it applies?
If I were you, with no
Experience at all. I mean, I cooked when I was in high school at 2 restaurants, and that's it. That's all I have in the service industry. I was a short order cook.
Well, again, I'm not saying you should do this, I'm saying this is what I would do. I would put some fake stuff on a resume. I would get a nice pair of pants, shirt, vest, maybe with the tie, get all spiffied up, go in. I would I don't I don't know these places, so I can't tell you when to go in. I don't know if they have food during the day. I don't know if it's just a nightclub only. But I would go in. Typically, a Monday is a good chill time when nobody's in there. Figure out like I would call in and ask who the manager is at the time before you go in. Then when you get there, ask for the manager specifically. And if they ask if they know if he knows or she knows if you're coming, just like yeah, just say yeah. Don't say no because they'll just take your resume and tell you to come back later or call later. Figure out who the manager is. Say you're there to meet him. Talk to him face to face. Be like, hey, I'm looking for a job around here. Haven't worked in the city before, and just looking to get started. I'd love to bar back, but if there's security jobs to start out with, I'm willing to do that to show I'm a good worker, and then go from there.
Okay, sounds good, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Hopefully some other people learn some stuff here too. We'll have a whole van dwelling bar backing core out there. That'd be funny.
Yeah, but
Oh, let me check the questions one more time and we'll end this thing. Well, we do have a question. Janice Adams, how does the barback make money? Percentage of sales? No, it's percentage of tips. Typically, the bartenders split 80%, the barbacks split 20%. But that sounds like a terrible deal, but whenever there's one or two barbacks and then 8 bartenders, you can do the math with that. Some places the barbacks make more than the bartenders, especially when you're with a group of good barbacks. Like I've been with bad barbacks, I've been with good barbacks. Whenever I'm with a good group of barbacks, the bartenders don't mind us making more because they know we work a lot harder. But typically it's a 20% thing. Do you living my life, Chris? Do you still do security sometimes, if need be? But I mean, I don't see myself doing it anymore with the amount of experience I have. But if I was in James' situation, absolutely, I'd do security, no problem. Got another question. How long do you stay static for one of these jobs, considering you're trying to travel? Shortest amount of time, a month. Longest amount of time, 6 months. Just depends on where I'm at and what I'm doing. Janice Adams, yes, very helpful to know how to make drinks. And you can read whatever books you want. You can read How to Bartend for Dummies, if that's even a book. You can do as much prepping as you can, but whenever you have 3 drinks in line and there's people shouting in your face and you have to make this amount of shots and these drinks and somebody's behind you trying to get on the register, no amount of training is going to prepare you for that situation. That's something you have to live through. What we call it is born through fire, being born through the fire. That's just that you just got to learn that. Like it's hard, but knowing how to drinks helps, but it's not everything. And I think that is the last question. So thanks for coming on, James.
Yep.
Tell Mike I said what's up whenever he makes it.
Okay, man. He should be here in a little bit. He texted me a little while ago. He was close, so that's why I was
Nice.
like, oh, knock on the door.
Nice, man. Well, good talking to you. If you have any other questions, just hit me up and we'll get something figured out.
All right, sounds good, brother.
All right, see you guys. Thanks for watching. If you have any other questions, please comment on this video, and we'll get back to you maybe next time. Maybe after James gets some experience out there, he can start a video on his channel, and we can get another live Q&A and see how it went.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds like a good plan.
All right, see you guys.